were male and 41 female, and 112 or 76% were associated with an underlying medical condition.
The Taoiseach says his aim over the next couple of months is to avoid another era of austerity. Leo Varadkar has said the number of people who have signed on the live register in the past 3 weeks is equivalent to the numbers who have lost their jobs over a 3-year period a decade ago. He also said it is possible that tax cuts could be used to stimulate the economy when the COVID-19 emergency is over.
And as an island that is very much connected to the world, a world recession will impact on us as well. But the objective absolutely is to avoid another era of austerity in Ireland.
Meanwhile, the Finance Minister says the cost of measures put in place to tackle COVID-19 could be more than €8 billion. Pascal Donoghue also believes there could be a tax shortfall of another €8 billion, at least by the end of 2020. New figures show the government has already collected €800 million less than it planned to in the first 3 months of this year. The board responsible for the development of the new National Children's Hospital in Dublin has begun legal action against the construction company BAM Ireland. It's over a dispute in relation to the validity of an alleged instruction given by the board to begin above ground work over a year ago. And Gardaí have seized a number of firearms after a man barricaded himself into a house in County Kerry. The standoff began at noon when officers were called out to the scene in Kilgarvan. They arrested a man in his 50s when the incident was resolved at 3 o'clock. It's 7:03.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA, our lowest car insurance price is online. Now even better.
Patchy rain, drizzle and mist tonight, mainly across southern counties. Otherwise, a lot of dry, calm weather. Lows of 1 to 6 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
All right, it is Thursday night. You're very welcome along to Off the Ball. Nathan with you until 10 o'clock this evening. We've got John Giles, as always, at 7:30. His all-time Liverpool 11 last Thursday sparked quite a bit of debate. I suspect it's going to be something similar this evening when he goes through his all-time Manchester United 11. I know it's going to be a 3-man midfield, so how do you fit in Roy Keane, Brian Robson, Bobby Charlton, Bobby Robson, David Beckham, Paul Scholes? Only 3 of them can make it in. He will reveal all at 7:30. Patty McGonigal's had an incredible career, Irish athletics team manager for a quarter of a century. He's been there, done that at Olympic Games, World Athletics Championships. Probably the most influential man in Irish athletics over the last 25 years. And he has a book out and he's going to talk to us about that after 8 o'clock. We'll hear from Johnny Sexton as well, who is stuck at home with his 3 kids. And we all know how tough that is. Look into these eyes, it's goddamn tough. So he was on OTBAM this morning chatting about that and chatting about the Irish captaincy, amongst other things. I will bring you that just after 8 o'clock. And on the football show, it is a special classic game club. I was joined by the Dundalk manager Vinnie Perth and the former Ireland international David Myler to look back and luxuriate in the brilliance of the Republic of Ireland's 1-0 victory over Italy at USA 94. We're going to talk about Paul McGrath's performance, Roy Keane's performance, Dennis Irwin's performance, and all that coming after 9 o'clock. You can get the whole thing up on YouTube. Well worth spending a couple of hours watching. 53106 is the text number. Joe Molloy is with us. Good evening, Joe.
Good evening, Nathan. How you doing?
I'm very well. And Richie McCormack is with us as well. That looks like a picture, Richie, more than a live man. You're very close to the camera, I must say.
Am I? I'll move the thing back. I presumed I was far away. There we go. Yeah, grand. You're complaining about the angle you have of me, whereas the one that I've been presented with on screen here is a very close-up, side-on angle. Yeah, you're almost looking at the camera there now, Nathan. Thank you for that. Whereby it was just almost 100% gel. So it was an interesting visage to be presented with as soon as you was out.
At some stage, Richie, we will see each other again, and I will remember that. I will remember that. Joe, tell us this. When you arrived home with the life-size Kevin Kilbane, what was your wife's reaction?
Well, she didn't realise the first time it was here that it would be up in the room, and she also uses this room as an office. So I think she thought there was an intruder in the house when she first walked into the room.
Was she worried he might propose to her?
Oh, dear.
This would be the one night.
That is a very fair question. He wasn't skating around, to the best of my knowledge. He was just running in his 2002 jersey in a semi-threatening way. But we're firm friends now. It's nice to have him around, I have to say.
We're never going to get that back from your house now, I presume. Strangely, that was on a Thursday night. Somebody texted in asking, could they have a life-size Kevin Kilbane for their man shed? Alan Brogan got in touch. 2 days later, a life-size Kevin Kilbane arrived in studio, and then we never bothered getting in touch with your man who wanted them for his man shed. We just kept it for ourselves.
Well, it's ours now.
And it's yours now. It's yours now. You keeping well?
Can we get...
You're doing all right?
Yeah, very well. Today was a good day. We did a Golf Weekly, as you know, and we got Paul McGinley on. You got in touch with Paul and said, do you want to come and riff for a little while? And he did. And I think we did well over an hour with Paul McGinley, just throwing listener questions at him, questions we had. And it was good stuff. It's available on podcast now. And we're going to stream it tomorrow morning as well, just after OTBAM. So that was very enjoyable. That wasn't a bad way to spend the afternoon.
Paul McGinley made a terrible mistake when I sent him a message yesterday asking him to come on. He said, well, I haven't got much else to be doing at the moment, to which I took, we've got him for the afternoon. And we are going to nerd him out of it for a good 90 minutes, which we did. Richie, you should tune in. It's just glorious.
Yeah, I've other things to do. As you say, Nathan, being saddled with 3 kids is something that can't be taken lightly.
Well, my kids actually managed to stay out for the full 90 minutes, which I think is the first time for an entire broadcast they haven't arrived into the room, which was fantastic.
I'm waiting for somebody to burst in the door because I've just bathed the 3 of them, and somebody's going to give out about something or other before they have to go to bed. So expect ructions before this news round is done.
Peter Lowry was on with us as well on Golf Weekly. And it is a remarkable thing, Joe, that Peter Lowry, Paul McGinley and Padraig Harrington all went to school in Coláiste Éine in Rathfarnham. 3 European Tour winners, a 3-time major winner, a European Ryder Cup captain, like 3 of our greatest sports people, all from the one school. It's just insane. It's hard to think of I can't imagine there's too many schools, certainly not public schools, that have a level of success quite like it.
No, it's incredible. I hadn't fully realised until today that Peter went to Coláiste Éine as well. I knew Padraig and Paul had gone to the same school. And we might do it another time with Paul, or maybe even get the 3 of them on together. But Paul was saying he has various kind of Malcolm Gladwell-esque theories as to why they all progressed the way they did. So yeah, it was kind of an extraordinary record for Coláiste Éine. I meant to ask, by the way, was because I haven't watched it since 1994 that day. My memory was that Ireland were massively under the cosh, but then on the Boys in Green documentary recently, a number of the players were saying that Ireland played really well that day against Italy. What was it like watching it back?
So, I won't ruin the Classic Game Club, but it was, I would have had a similar thought that Ireland got an early goal and then the Italians came at them and Paul McGrath just turned into the Hulk and they couldn't get past them. Whereas the game was nothing like that. Ireland totally deserved to win this game. Created, I'd say there was 5 good chances in the game. Ireland created 4 of them. Packie Bonner had 1 save to make early in the second half from Signori when Italy had a good start, 15 minutes. Dino Baggio really came into it at the start of the second half. But once they weathered that storm, Ireland looked very comfortable. Jason McAteer came on for the last 20 minutes and was brilliant, added a real energy. Roy Keane in that last 20 minutes, half an hour, just driving forward again and again. And like
John Sheridan
hit the crossbar after this brilliant move down the left-hand side from Roy Keane. Ray Houghton almost scored a second where he was meant to be taken off 30 seconds earlier. They couldn't get the board up in time, so he stayed on. Niall Quinn, who bizarrely is on co-commentary, considering a month earlier he should have been in the squad. Niall Quinn's like, wouldn't it be hilarious if Ray Houghton popped up and scored a second? And very nearly did. Andy Townsend had a brilliant chance. So it was... Considering how good, and this is the context, I suppose, as to why it's probably Ireland's greatest ever win. 7 of that Italian squad were part of the AC Milan squad that exactly a month earlier had battered Barcelona in the Champions League final. They also had Roberto Baggio, who was the current World Footballer of the Year, and Pepe Signori, who scored 50 goals in Serie A over the previous 2 seasons. This was an Italian side that was at a totally different level, and they just looked unnerved, or they couldn't get to grips with Ireland playing long balls at all. And it wasn't all long balls, but every time Packie Bonner hoofed it long, their defence looked all over the place. Baggio wasn't in any ways influential, just dropped deeper and deeper and deeper. And yeah, Ireland, surprising to me as well, totally deserved to win the game.
Okay, very good. I'll be listening to that because, yeah, I just under the cosh show. Now, because the USSR game is the famous one in Euro '88 where the team just decided to throw off whatever shackles were on them and express themselves, and it was maybe their best ever performance against a brilliant side. And it kind of struck me in that documentary a couple of weeks ago when they said, we played really well against Italy. So I'll be listening later on.
Well, you do have similar questions in that I don't think that 94 squad was as good as the 88 squad and didn't have the striking options in particular, even though Tommy Coyne did well that day leading the line. But there were times when Ireland played the ball around the midfield, and the midfield of Keane, Townsend and Sheridan were exceptional for the energy they had. But there were also times where you just wanted them to play a bit more football. Now, maybe it was game management and the heat. The one thing is the heat that I don't think unless you were there, and bloody hell, the amount of people who tweeted me when I said we were covering this saying they were there, like, I think every person who was in their mid-20s up found themselves in Giant Stadium. And my wife was saying she was at the game, and the first thing when I mentioned it was like, I never remember a day as hot. So maybe we need to take that into account as well for parts of the performance, that there was just a whatever chance. Like, it's still bizarre watching Steve Staunton coming on wearing the hat, Ray Houghton wearing the hat, and the Italians wearing their tracksuit top zipped up, just trying to show off.
They're just classy and they're stylish that way, Nathan.
USA 94 was proof that playing a World Cup in a Gulf state is going to be lunacy. Half the Irish lads have turned into beetroot-faced puddles by the middle of the first half. Sunshine and heat are not our friends, from Luke. We do talk a lot about that as to whether in the modern day, with strength and conditioning and maybe less partying, whether a current squad would be as impacted by the heat.
Yeah, I don't think in terms of discipline, in terms of strength and conditioning, that Ireland squad were particularly disciplined. You only have to look at some of the photos that did the rounds from the actual tournament itself. I mean, you see the training sessions, and yes, they're dripping in sweat, but there's also enough time for fun and games, which, let's be honest, at a World Cup in 2022 and beyond, for whatever reason, just wouldn't happen the same way again. So I think players are definitely better equipped to cope with those kind of conditions, but it's not to say that they won't be oppressive by the time that year comes around.
So that will be a talking point later this evening. Something else that will be a talking point is John Giles' all-time Manchester United 11.
Yes.
So I've been given a sneak peek in this, Joe. Give me your three-man midfield, because it's a three-man midfield John Giles has gone for. Not his, what yours would be. Now, consider you have Roy Keane, Brian Robson, Bobby Charlton, Paul Scholes, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham. You can only have three of them.
Nobby Stiles.
Nobby Stiles. No family allowed in.
It's actually an impossible task. Well, I just know for a fact. I'm giving myself. I haven't seen Bobby Charlton, but it's John Giles's team, and I have to take the man's word as gospel. So Bobby Charlton is in. I'm saying. I am also saying Roy Keane is in. I know John loved Brian Robson from his West Brom days, and I suspect even John came to. We haven't even mentioned Cristiano Ronaldo. Although is he in the maybe he's in the front
he's a
three.
forward.
Oh, okay. I think it's Charlton, Keane, and with a heavy heart, I feel like he went with Scholes over Brian Robson. That's my feeling.
All right, we shall wait and see. High off the ball, could you give a shout out to the Bon Mahon boys, who are trying to predict Manchester United's best 11 since 1960? A lot of debate and discussion, but everyone agrees that George Best will be in John's team tonight.
Best is a certainty. Best and Charlton are in. Best is in.
Dennis
Law.
So for your forwards, it's a three-man forward line. You have the options of Dennis Law, Wayne Rooney, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Cristiano Ronaldo, George Best, Marcus Rashford.
Well, who are the definites there? Best is a definite.
Yeah. I think Dennis Law is going to be a definite in John's team.
And
he was just a remarkable striker by all accounts as well.
Rooney's United's top goal scorer ever in history. He's hard to overlook that. And then Ronaldo is Ronaldo and did extraordinary things. Like, if you were doing it in terms of contribution to Manchester United, Giggs would be in. But if you're doing it as the best team on a given day, Giggs is nowhere near it. I even know that sounds like a ridiculously harsh way of putting it. Best, Law. I'd say he's a soft spot for Van Nistelrooy. I'm going to go Rooney, though. Rooney sacrificed himself for the team.
You won't have to wait too long. That is coming your way between now and 8 o'clock. 53106 is the text number if you want to get involved. Richie, where are you starting?
One of those people who has plenty of time in their hands at the moment, Jonathan Sexton, says his Ireland captaincy will come under formal review once this year's Six Nations is finally completed. Ireland still have games with Italy and France to play later in the year due to the coronavirus pandemic. And Sexton told this morning's OTB AM that he will lead Ireland for the remainder of the campaign in whatever form that presents itself.
Apart from the England game, which obviously is very difficult to do, are you actually enjoying the whole process of being the captain of Ireland?
Yeah, I am actually. Look, like I said before, it's an incredible honour. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind anytime we talk about the captaincy. It's something that I've really enjoyed. I've felt that I've performed well with it in terms of the times when Rory went off. In the latter stages of games in 2018, I was doing it the odd time. Did it at the World Cup, albeit against Russia, but performed well, and then I was happy with how I was performing off the back of the first two games. Obviously didn't go to plan against England, which was good in, but it had nothing to do with me being captain. I saw a few comments. You have to, obviously when you're going in to do press conferences and you're saying that David O'Shea will tell me some of the gist of what's going on, and saying about how am I struggling with my kicking because of captaincy. It's nothing to do with, I kicked whatever 85-90% of my other games as captain, but one bad game and suddenly everyone jumps on the bandwagon and it's all too much and you can't do this as captain, you can't do that. It's just, that's the frustrating part. Obviously Faz had spoke to me before the Six Nations, and we talked about it being a one campaign thing. So I'm not sure what he'll do going forward, whether he goes with someone else or whether he thinks I've done a good job. But I've enjoyed it, and I'll be happy no matter what. If it's someone else, I'll get in behind them. If it's me, I'll try and improve and try and help the team as best I can.
Yeah, lots of interesting stuff out of Sexton this morning. We'll play you the full interview between 8 and 9. Interesting, or maybe not, maybe this is quite often the case, that it is just a one tournament captaincy, that let's see how it goes. At his age, is that understandable, Joe?
Yeah, I think so. I think that makes perfect sense, because there's probably an element of steadying the ship as well after what had happened in the World Cup, and Sexton's very experienced and we have a new coach coming in. So I think that was a very mature call to say, well, if potentially James Ryan is going to be the player that will take Ireland into the next World Cup, which looks likely, as captain, then there's no need to overburden him. 2-3 years of being captain will be plenty for him. Sexton, perfect candidate to do it. It's also interesting, how Chinese whispers works, because David O'Shea said something to him before a press conference. He's obviously talking about the Ronan O'Gara comments there in his clip with Ger this morning. And it wasn't like O'Gara was saying you're struggling with your kicking because you're captain. He was talking about the many responsibilities on Sexton. It was kind of a nuanced point he was making. So it's interesting when you hear that's how Sexton perceives the talk. But in terms of him being captain and review it, I think it makes perfect sense. James Ryan may not need that just now.
Just to let you know that Off the Ball are once again handing over the microphone to the kids of Ireland for the OTB Kids Takeover. That's right, we're giving the stuck-at-home children of Ireland a chance to interview some of the biggest stars in Irish sport. Last week, it was Irish rugby legend Brian O'Driscoll. Next week, it is Mayo legend Lee Keegan. You can ask Lee Keegan whatever the hell you want. Though any people who send in videos of kids in Dublin jerseys asking about GPS, you're not getting on it. Simple as that. Now, you can ask him if you want. He'll answer anything. It's all perfectly fine. If you want to get involved, all you got to do is WhatsApp your question to 0879 180 180. That is 0879 180 180. You can video them asking the question and we'll put that to Lee Keegan, or you can just send in a picture and a question and we'll put that to them as well. So that's 0879 180 180. We'll be recording that early next week. So get your questions in. Basically, the more ridiculous the questions are, the better for Lee Keegan. We've lots more good people lined up as well over the next couple of weeks, but I'd imagine it's a particular interest to Mayo people, that one. So get your questions in. What else you got for us, Richie?
The Belgian top flight, Nathan, has become the first major league in Europe to end its season due to the coronavirus. The Pro League's board of directors say it's very unlikely the play can resume before June 30th, and that playing behind closed doors would put a strain on health services and law officials. If the decision is ratified at a General Assembly on April 15th, then Bruges would be crowned champions.
Don't forget, in 1994, Ireland beat Germany and Holland easily in the World Cup warm-ups. That Italy team only lost in the final on penalties. We were bloody good. Rewind 2 years, lads, to the qualifiers for the European Championship. Ireland were playing brilliant stuff. We're in the same group as England, who qualified in goal difference. I felt Ireland could have won that tournament had they got in. Denmark eventually won it. And finally, my father, who's now 86, got a corporate trip to the game at Giants Stadium. Nice. He'd never been to a live game of any sort before. Wait a second. Prawn Cocktail Brigade. High up in the stands. To this day, he talks about only watching how Paul McGrath read the game and how he worked Phil Babb like a puppeteer to save his legs. Yeah, Paul McGrath's performance is something we talk about a lot. One of the questions that come up was he actually the best Irish centre-half on the pitch that day? Vinnie Perth had some views on that. We'll let the Dundalk manager discuss that, and we won't hang him out to dry just yet. Johnny won't nominate himself, but he would still have to rank as one of the best midfielders to play for Manchester United. I guess this is where the Cristiano Ronaldo conversation will be interesting. So, John Giles is one of the best midfielders to have ever played for Manchester United, but most of his best football was when he was with Leeds. Did Cristiano Ronaldo do enough during his time at Manchester United to be in their all-time greatest team? Are you also sort of looking at what he did and developed into at Real Madrid and with Portugal?
Yeah, I think you have to leave Ronaldo out on that basis. You know, his last 2 years at United were beginning to get very exceptional, but then what he did at Madrid was just stratospheric. So I think you leave him out on that basis.
A lot of focus now starting to come on the Premier League, Richie, in terms of pay cuts, and Premier League players may well end up in a little bit of a lightning rod for criticism. Rightly or wrongly, I saw Matt Hancock's just been doing a press conference and he was saying, you know, maybe it's time the Premier League players stepped up. It seems negotiations are ongoing, but around the world, I see in Spain today that Atletico Madrid players have stepped up.
Yeah, Atletico Madrid have followed Barcelona's lead. They've agreed to help supplement the salary of 430 employees affected by the coronavirus at the club. Manager Diego Simeone and members of the club's management committee will also contribute after the club presented a temporary employment regulation file. All the members of the first team, along with the women's team and Atletico Madrid B, have also agreed a 70% reduction in salaries during the crisis, which brings us to the comments of British MP who says Premier League clubs should be sanctioned if they continue to pay their players while furloughing other staff. Tottenham, Newcastle, Norwich and Bournemouth have placed employees on the UK government's coronavirus job retention scheme. Julian Knight is chair of the UK Parliament's Digital, Culture, Media and Sports Subcommittee. He says it's morally wrong that clubs continue to pay players their full wage during the crisis while placing staff on leaves of absence. The Premier League, EFL, PFA and LMA are continuing talks about possible wage deferrals, and former Tottenham and Everton striker Gary Lineker is sure that some kind of measure is in the pipeline.
Don't think for 1 minute this is not being discussed by players all around the country. They'll be fully well aware of this. They're very young men, teenagers, early 20s. They need a little bit of guidance on this. PFA, from my experience, don't always give the best guidance, but that remains to be seen. But I think it's very important that football does play its part in this. Football will suffer massively, of course, because football without football means economic disaster for a lot of clubs. Obviously, the Giants will survive, but it's really worrying for those further down the leagues. But I'm sure the big stars at the big clubs are looking at this and looking to do the right thing. It's not something that they can just make a decision overnight. They have to have a degree of togetherness on this. I've got no inside information, and if in a week's time we're still in the same position, then I'll start to doubt it as well. But I honestly think that we will hear things from players, and I expect probably in the next few days, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I think, Joe, if we were here in a week's time and nothing had happened, it would be morally wrong for Premier League footballers. But at the same time, it feels as though it suits a lot of British politicians to make them, young, rich men, a little bit of a scapegoat, while not maybe criticising many other positions with similar wealth who are doing very, very little as well. The Premier League players obviously have a very strong union in the PFA. They're looking at a lot of the owners and what they're doing in terms of taking cutbacks. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops over the next few days.
I think there's no other decision for the clubs to make but to either get the players to take temporary pay cuts or certainly pay deferrals. These clubs are putting huge numbers of workers, they're furloughing huge numbers of them, they're taking taxpayer money to pay and subsidise those non-playing staff members' wages, and yet they're giving Premier League players hundreds of thousands of euros a week. That is unsustainable. That is disgraceful if that continues over a period of months when there is a massive tax bill to be paid by every taxpayer in pretty much every country around the world. So if you're furloughing staff and you're taking taxpayer money and at the same time you're dishing out hundreds of thousands to individuals who don't need it, then I think the situation would get very messy. The criticism would be overwhelming. And, if we're all thinking about the kind of society we might try and edge towards at the back of this, then football needs to be very careful here.
Yeah, it does. And football is in a different role in society in general, I think, in terms of how they're viewed. So they need to be wary of that everyone talks about football maybe coming back in June or July as this big celebration. People may have a very different view on footballers if they don't handle this right. But you'd have to expect that they can't be that ignorant, that they won't come up with some sort of a solution over the next little while. Just finally, Richie, we started on golf. We should finish on golf. The Open, it might still be on.
It's almost like you planned this. The RNA say they're considering postponing this summer's Open Championship. The competition is due to be played at Royal St George's at Sandwich from July the 16th. The Open's organisers have denied that the tournament will be cancelled, but say a final decision is reliant on a range of external factors. The Masters and the USPGA have already been postponed until later in the year.
Yeah, we did touch on this on the podcast with Paul McGinley. I think he's expecting it to be postponed at the very least, that there are just so many factors in terms of insurance, TV, the contracts are so large with something like this. It's not as straightforward as just saying it's gone.
Yeah, the one interesting thing he said right off the bat, and the great thing when you're talking to McGinley in these circumstances, is he's on the European Tour board, so he's not just speculating. You suspect he's hearing things. We put it to him near enough the start of the podcast today. If we get to October, September, say, and they figure there maybe are 10 good playing weeks, say we've 10 weeks of 20 left, will the four majors take precedence, maybe along with the Ryder Cup? And he said, yes, I would think so. So that might be a way, later in the year where we get all four majors played over the course of 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. So that was his understanding of how things will most likely go, in so much as you can be certain about anything right now.
Well, Richie, if you want to stay away from the kids for 1 hour, 23 minutes and 24 seconds of Golf Weekly goodness, the Golf Weekly podcast is up on offtheball.com.
Oh, it's a dog at the gate. Now. Class.
Right
What's
now.
That? Sorry, you were saying, Nathan?
Gentlemen, thank you as always. Richie, mind yourself. Joe, we'll talk to you soon.
Yourself.
See ya.
All right, quick break, and then we're talking to John Giles about his all-time Manchester United 11.
I've got everything in front of me. So I think I have it. It took me a while to get there.
Okay.
A few of the lads in there earlier on, but I think I've got it. Yeah.